Hello, everybody. This is our 60th episode of Sports Goof. We're 9 away from the nicest episode possible. So
We'll have to do something really special for that
yeah,
one.
we'll have to do something really nice for that one. And we've got Andrew and Charles as always, but we've got a special guest. Andrew, introduce us.
Absolutely. We have, I guess this is one of those long-time listener, first-time caller deal. Um, so we have our resident poll maker, uh, realignment maker, graphics maker, you name it. He goes by Freddie Airmail. So Freddie is, although we just call him Freddie. So Freddie is here with us tonight.
Hey guys.
Yo.
It's nice to finally be able to talk to you in person because you're on the show all the time. We love having you, but now we actually get to talk to you in person and talk to the man, the myth, the legend himself.
So Freddie, how's quarantine treating you?
Oh, it's been a blast.
Have you discovered any new shows or learned how to whittle or what have you? Learn how to weld? I don't know. People are learning new stuff now.
Not yet, not yet. Watching a lot of ESPN, taking a lot of draft stuff.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, now people are Dolphins. People down here are like, are the Dolphins really going to take Tua or whatever? Now everybody's questioning it. So
Yeah,
watch us take a tackle. You know what? Let's take a tackle and we'll try this tanking thing one more go around. But yeah. Okay, so we've got NBA Courtside 2002 in the background. That was a GameCube exclusive with the late great Kobe Bryant as the cover athlete. And I'll have some random game going on there in the background. And there's an announcement finally on the top left corner, NBA Horse Challenge. ESPN will be televising the semifinals and the finals at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on Thursday. So if anybody's desperate to watch anything sports related, you can watch that. And Charles, who we were hoping to get that they could get for that one?
Steph Curry, because let's be honest here, that man can shoot from the rafters and make it in. I don't need to see Chris Paul. With all respect and love for Chris Paul, his very kind of pseudo wonky jump shot coming in there.
Okay, yeah, all right, and well, this is a who the heck cares? We'll figure something out episode because I have no real structure for this. But Andrew, you suggested something, so please take the floor.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, Freddie is a realignment expert. He comes up with a lot of really good ideas for realignment for any of the pro leagues really, and he's come to us today with a hypothetical scenario where the NFL would expand to 40 teams. I know this has been posited a couple of times on YouTube. There was one guy, 5 Points Vids, who made a back-to-back set of videos where he said there's no way it could happen, and he then debated himself basically and released another video the same day saying here's why it could happen. So it'll be interesting to see another take on that. So I sent over your realignment teams and realignment conferences over to Francisco, who will hopefully put them on screen.
Nice.
So
he's always very kind to do.
So with that, take it away. Here we go.
All right. So what you should be seeing now is the NFL XL, which I like to call it because it's extra large, but also because that's the Roman numeral for 40.
Oh,
nice.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. And so, we've got the 32 teams that there already are, plus we've got 8 new teams.
All right.
And it's pretty West heavy expansion, we've got 5 teams that are west of the Mississippi and 1 that's on it with St. Louis. So,
All right, so let's see. We've got
a couple teams.
Arizona, LA. Okay, so this would be the, I guess, NFC West. The Arizona Cardinals, LA Rams, San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks, and the added team in Portland. So a Portland team. And then Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Orlando would be the NFC South. Then the NFC North would be the Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, and adding the St. Louis Archers. Then the NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Redskins, and a team in Virginia called the Voyagers. So that's the NFC. AFC West, Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders, got to get used to saying that, Salt Lake Stingers, San Diego Destroyers, and Sacramento Bobcats. Then we've got the Houston Texans, Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns, Indianapolis Colts, and Pittsburgh Steelers for the... Oh, wait, I skipped one. Whoops. Sorry, Houston Texans, Kansas City Chiefs, Oklahoma Mustangs, San Antonio Chargers, and Tennessee Titans, I guess, would be the South, the AFC South. And then the North would be Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Indianapolis, and Pittsburgh. So you'd be moving the Colts to the North. And then finally the Bills, Jaguars, Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets in the East. All right. So then
What do you think?
Well, I guess. What I don't know, inspired. What made you think of, like, for example, Salt Lake City, San Antonio? I mean, I think it's obvious that St. Louis would come back because they have a pretty good fan base. It's interesting you call them the Chargers.
No, the Archers.
San Antonio?
Oh, that might be a typo.
I moved the LA Chargers to San Antonio.
Oh, interesting.
That was also a stipulation of this thing.
Yeah, because I don't think LA could support 2 teams right now, so I definitely agree with that. I see San Diego Destroyers. I think that was the name of their AAF team, right?
That was the Fleet, so it was pretty close. It was the same theme.
Okay.
The whole naval battleship kind of thing.
Let me go through who else. Portland Paladins. I'm guessing that's for the alliteration.
A little bit. I noticed, like, the way this project kind of started out was I was working on, like, expanding the Alliance of American Football, as you mentioned, and then also the new XFL. And this kind of grew out of that as well, what if we did this with the NFL, or what if we did it with Major League Baseball even?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the other pro leagues could expand to? Can we Charles? Can we just subtract the Cleveland Browns? So do you think the other pro leagues could expand potentially to 40 teams, or do you think the NFL is the only one that could support that?
I mean, I think even if the NFL could support it, it's something that you'd have to do in stages, you know?
Right.
Like, you couldn't go straight from 32 to 40. You'd have to at least have one step in between, with some teams being added and some still kind of waiting in the wings.
Right.
Because one of the things is there's that some of these teams have stadiums in those metro areas.
Right.
That could accommodate an NFL team. You know, they're the NFL. They're bigger than the current stadium. I'll say that.
Right.
Which is Soldier Field in Chicago.
That's the smallest one right now?
Yeah, it's the smallest at 61,500.
Wow, did not know that.
I forget that they lopped off so much of their capacity thanks to those ridiculous renovations.
Putting a
few years ago.
spaceship on top of it, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see else. St.
So,
Louis Archers.
I mean, Portland has always been a city. Teams people have floated for having several different teams from every sports league have a team. I guess the natural rivalry with Seattle would be there, so I could see that.
Yeah, I still
Um,
uh,
Oregon football is super popular, so they could. Nike would probably love it having a team in Oregon, and they'd probably go ham with their uniforms. And that'd be their team. So
probably push for that rule in the NFL for the only one helmet shell per year.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I bet the NFL would probably lean if that happened.
Well,
More
supposedly
money.
Bruce Arians spilled the beans like a week or so ago and said that they're going to be getting rid of that one shell rule in the next year or so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember that because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wanted to bring back the creamsicles,
Right.
and you can't really do that with combining the uniform with the standard helmet.
Actually, if you can stay on, we'll get your take on the uniform changes as well for them, as well as the Colts, who didn't change their uniform, but their logo set a bit. Let's see, St. Louis Archers.
So Andrew, how do you feel? Because he added Orlando, and that'd be funny if the NFL just suddenly failed if an Orlando team was added because every professional league that has an Orlando team just falls apart afterwards. But I mean, I don't think the NFL would add a fourth team to the state of Florida.
Yeah, that's kind of a stretch, and I mean, maybe you could, I don't know, Jacksonville from where they are.
I mean, they moved to London most likely. If that would, that would probably be the team. If they moved to London, it would still fit within the AFC East because they'd be close to those northeastern teams. So I could see that, but I don't know if Tampa Bay, because these teams have territorial rights, I don't think they would want a team so close to them, especially in Orlando. I think Jacksonville is far enough away, especially being on the line between Florida and Georgia, that it was okay for the Buccaneers to have the Jaguars. I don't know, but I don't see Orlando being a city that could that Tampa Bay Buccaneers would allow to exist.
I mean,
it's definitely an interesting argument. Is where do you start with this? And I guess it kind of depends on who the ownership groups that they select are. Because teams.
Yeah, if it's Walt Disney World, they'd probably allow that to happen, just like with the Anaheim Ducks or whatever.
Yeah.
Bigger question, says Charles. Does the NFL thrive with an international team?
I think so. One of the things I talked about before, an international team, I guess, given the way the NFL is structured, I think it could work. I don't see it as an NFL Europe thing. I think it would just be like the London team would be Europe's team, and they would attract so many people to that one team to support them. So I think the support would be there for a European London team, and the scheduling is the thing that kind of people are worried about, the travel. But I made the example of the Alaska Aces, who used to be an ECHL team up in, I think they played in Anchorage or Juneau, in Anchorage, Alaska. And their schedule was basically half of their season was at home, so everybody had to go visit them. And then the next half, they were completely on the road, and they had to visit everybody else. That's how they structure it for the ECHL. And I would assume they do that for a London team in somewhere, maybe like a quarter of the season they're always on the road, another quarter they're at home, just to make it easier for that team and for everybody else to travel to them, especially like a West Coast team having to travel to them. So that's how I would see it being structured for a London team, and I think they would be successful in the NFL.
I mean, I would counter that argument, and say this: if you look at, so the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar entity, and even and I know their money pool is somewhat. Each team has their own money pool, basically. So you have the haves and the have-nots. But even the poorest NFL team, quote unquote, is still a multi-million-dollar organization. The University of Hawaii's football team, hell, their entire athletics department plays on the continental United States, and they're still able to afford it. That is a public university, which, let me look at their endowment. Their endowment is $326.9 million US dollars. So they are somehow able to pay for however many varsity teams, because they're part of the Mountain West Conference in football only, and they're part of the WAC conference.
No, they're Big West now.
Oh, they're Big West now?
Yeah.
But even still, all of their other teams all of their teams play in the continental United States.
Yeah.
So them doing that, coupled with these guys having school schedules and things like that, if Hawaii is able to make that work, surely an NFL team could. And there was an interesting video from a YouTube channel called Wendover Productions that I love to watch, that actually talked about this exactly, which is, could the NFL sustain a team in England? And the argument he made was that exact one about University of Hawaii. So I don't think there's any real reason the NFL couldn't go to England, just because, like I said, Hawaii. So the NFL doesn't have an excuse if they decide they want to go through with it. That being said, I think the NFL, or England for that matter, they kind of have the best of both worlds right now, because right now they're getting the equivalent of a home schedule with 8 games each season. And, they have a different flavor each week, as it were.
Yeah, they don't have to be stuck with one team that might not be all that great.
Exactly. Their only home team, quote unquote, is Jacksonville, who plays one game there each season. So they do have a team to rally around. And I hear they have a pretty decent fan base over in England. But,
Those poor souls.
So they could do it if they wanted to, but I don't think they will.
Okay, so let's go to, so that's, we talked about that. Okay, a team in St. Louis, that would be natural. St. Louis is, what happened?
Green and orange.
Those St. Louis sort of University of Miami colors.
I don't know. Well, let's see. Historically, what have St. Louis teams worn in the past? I mean, they had the Cardinals before that. They have the St. Louis Cardinals now. They wear red primarily. The Blues wear blue. So I guess green, to have another one of those colors, green, blue, and red. Maybe get a basketball team, they can wear yellow and you have all those colors. I have no idea.
Yeah. Originally, when I first started this project, I had them basically being the replacement Rams, and I went with the royal blue and the yellow gold. But then actual Los Angeles Rams went and switched back to that traditional color scheme, and so I was like, okay, well, I got to get away from that. And so at first I went to red and silver.
Okay.
And then I was like, that's a little too obviously just being the opposite of the Los Angeles Rams. And so then I was like, okay, well, what about this green and orange that I've done in a couple other places?
Okay.
It works.
It works, and it works. Their division works too, because those are all natural rivalries that city has with teams in other sports. So it works perfectly to have them there.
Definitely.
Now over to Virginia.
There's a bigger reason.
Oh. Go ahead, Charles.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to comment. There's a bigger reason why it works, Freddie, is because if anybody's seen the Disney Robin Hood, he's green and orange, so we're doing archers. You just put him as a mascot. It's perfect. Disney might sue, but I just want to put that comment in there because I was looking at it and just, I was trying not to crack up as I'm thinking of it because I'm stupid. So that's just where my brain takes me. So the idea of you can have the first real NFL mascot that actually matters. Hot take right there, but you could just have Disney's Robin Hood and no one would know. But over to Virginia.
That works too.
Yeah, Virginia.
Inspiration behind the name.
It alliterates like Portland, but I don't know. I kind of was thinking like this kind of like
Colonial kind of
age of exploration.
Yeah. Yeah, Virginia was like the main colony back in the olden times, so I could see that the Virginia Voyagers. Come on, Charles. So Voyagers, they have the naval bases there too. The Norfolk Admirals are a American Hockey League team there. It's been there a while, so that's and Northern Virginia was one of the cities that was or one of the areas that was vying for the Montreal Expos when Major League Baseball was shopping them around, and then ultimately ended up in DC. So there's the population is there. That area could easily support a Major League sports team.
Now let's see, for Sacramento, that's an interesting choice because Sacramento is a relatively small city. They've got the Kings. Let me see their population.
Sacramento's got the Spurs. Oh no, Sacramento. They got the Sacramento Kings. I mean, they are. I'm surprised you haven't suggested the Inland Empire, because there's always been many arguments that area could support a Major League sports team, or all four of the sports, really. It's the Inland Empire is that area east of Los Angeles, which has this massive amount of people there. Although the LA teams claim that area, I'm sure they wouldn't want to let it go, but there is enough room for two teams to be there. Or for LA to have their stuff, and then the Inland Empire to have their own thing. So that could be a place too for a Western team, and sure they'd be supported like crazy. Nobody has to go all the way to Los Angeles to see their teams. There's various minor league teams there in that area. The Ontario Reign, the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, a bunch of minor league. I think there's a team called the Inland Empire 66ers as well. So there's plenty of already history of them having sports teams there, but just they've never gotten a Major League sports team, even though they do have the population to support it.
Yeah. The thing I was doing was I was going by, I was using the combined statistical area numbers from the Census Bureau. And according to them, Sacramento has a population of 2.6 million in their metro area.
I'm actually surprised.
which is bigger than San Antonio.
So that's well. I mean, yeah. California is the biggest state. They've got so many people that they do have enough to support several other teams if they wanted to.
It's like 8 times bigger than Green Bay.
Yeah, yeah. And Green Bay's the smallest out of all the major league sports teams. The smallest area, even smaller than Winnipeg. So.
I just felt like dunking on them. That's all.
All right, so we've got let's see, so Virginia. So let's go to we got Vegas, Sacramento, Salt Lake City. So a Utah team, San Diego, of course. They probably would take a team back, begrudgingly so. They probably like, well, screw you NFL, f you Spanos, but they'll take their team back. Oklahoma getting a team.
I'm guessing that's an OKC.
Yeah. I was thinking they could maybe use the University of Oklahoma's stadium for maybe a couple years before they get a stadium of their own.
Interesting. Okay.
It's definitely big enough, and it's like 20 miles south of the city, I think. So, but I've heard there's a lot of space where they could get a stadium of their own.
It's Oklahoma. It's all space. And they hire Bob Stoops.
San Antonio getting a team. Now they've been kind of the place that the NFL temporarily puts team. I mean, they had their shot with the Saints after Katrina, so they've already had a bit of an audition, and they would have a natural rivalry. Yeah, and they have natural rivalries with like the Houston Texans right there. So, and they can, of course, they have the odd matchup against the Cowboys, which would be huge too. Then the Titans.
Part of the reason why I moved the Chargers to San Antonio also is because there's 3 teams in the West in the AFC. I decided that Kansas City kind of needed a realignment buddy.
Oh, that works. Yeah.
The Chiefs-Chargers rivalry is kind of not just maintained, but it's also stoked a little bit by putting them closer together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we've got, let's see, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Indianapolis, and Pittsburgh. But this time you've moved Indianapolis with those other North teams, which makes sense because the Colts, well, Indianapolis is furthest, is definitely not south of anything. So they've been paired up with Tennessee and Jacksonville and all those other teams for a while now, but they're definitely the most northern of those teams. And then you've moved Jacksonville over to the AFC East, which would give them a rivalry with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So they'd have a second Florida team there. All right. So, and then let's see. And you sent me this other list here of Birmingham, Columbus, Orlando. This is a different list.
And I mentioned in PMs that I had 36 team and 42 team versions of this same thing, but that the 40 team version is my favorite.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty well balanced. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm surprised you haven't suggested a Canadian team. Just have a team in Toronto.
What I wanted to do was I wanted to keep it just in the U.S. mostly because of logistical things, and you guys mentioned some stuff that I hadn't really thought of with how they could make London work. But then I also decided to not do Canada because the CFL. I like the CFL. I am a CFL fan.
I mean, that would kill the Argonauts immediately, I would say.
Yeah.
Unless the Argonauts would be like sort of like transferring their franchise to the NFL, and all their logos and all that stuff would be property of the NFL. But
the other thing is, do you know how big the Toronto Argonauts stadium is?
Oh no, that's right. They moved out of the Rogers Center and now play at the MLS stadium. So the NFL would probably put a mandate. You need an NFL-sized stadium, at least 60K, in order to be in our league. So they would.
Which the biggest two stadiums in the CFL don't seat 60,000.
So that would be what the BC Place and
BC and Edmonton.
okay, Edmonton. Okay, that's true. The CFL stadiums aren't that huge. I mean, they're huge in terms of size, but like actual square footage and stuff, or square meters in Canada. So, but they're not that huge, given the Heritage Classics that they've played there. So yeah, the NFL that would be demanding. I don't think Toronto would be behind funding a new stadium for an NFL team which would only play 8 games per year at the very least. Yeah, that'd be an issue, especially when they have a perfectly good Rogers Center, but the Blue Jays aren't going to let football back into their building either. Okay. And there's no other city in the NFL that would, or in Canada, that has the size of the Toronto area. All right. Okay. So that's that's the suggestion there. So
What do you guys think? What would you? I guess my question is, what metro areas, other than, I guess you've already talked about the Inland Empire a little bit, but what else would you consider?
Well, other than Inland Empire and London, Toronto, you kind of helped me talk myself out of that idea. It's really hard now. The NFL is pretty much in every gigantic area that they could be in at this point. It's not like the NBA kind of goes to all these kind of smaller niche areas like Utah and Oklahoma City, but the NFL and baseball haven't been in those places. So these kind of the suggestions you already have here kind of already tick the marks for pretty much everything. Birmingham, I see here. So what?
Now, on that list of 10, I put it
Yeah.
Birmingham, Columbus. So those are kind of like my honorable mentions.
Columbus,
for the teams that I
Ohio.
made
I don't know if the Bengals or the Browns would allow to have a third team in Ohio. I mean Columbus would be
Right.
perfectly in the
Ohio is
middle.
even more so Ohio is even more so the situation that you mentioned in Florida, which is kind of it's a borderline case of, do you allow the expansion there or not? I think Ohio is a more clear example of where the population isn't enough to support that many teams.
Right. Yeah, because everywhere else would seem to be, like it wouldn't be enough to support those teams. You've got the NBA's had stops in like Omaha, Nebraska, and that hasn't worked out for them. So I can't see. I mean, they have enough trouble having a good college football team. So I don't know how they would support an NFL team, especially if they were bad. So that would fail instantly, too. I can't really argue against some of these.
Suggestion.
Ooh, okay.
It's not so much against Freddie. I think Freddie's list is kind of comprehensive, but I only think of what the Carolina Panthers did because it's Carolina. So the idea is that for a fan base of 2 states, it's North and South. So the only place I can think of would be the Dakotas, North and South Dakota. You put near the border. I know the population is very limited. The only great thing I know about North Dakota is the Bison, I think is the team name that wins the lower end of the college football. It's not Division 2 or 3 anymore, but
North Dakota State the Division 1 FCS championship a lot.
Yeah, they've been 6 out of the last 7 years or something of that nature. It's where Carson Wentz came from.
Like that.
Yeah, because the only other thing I could think of would be like Virginia and West Virginia, and I don't even know if we even want to touch that. But if you're trying to get a 2-tier state, you kind of put it near the line of whatever state's going to fund it more, and you might be able to bring people there. That's the only one I could think of. Everything else kind of hits the points. I don't know if they want another Ohio team for a very valid reason. The Ohio teams have kind of sucked in the NFL a lot. But
Yeah.
take it to logistics, a couple years ago, the Browns 1-15, 0-16. The Bengals just finished going 2-14, getting number one pick. They still might be bad, even with Joe Burrow and everybody else. How much funding you kind of want to put out there? I don't know enough about Pennsylvania really, because you have the Philly and then you have Pittsburgh. So it's like, all right, you're kind of good there. New York doesn't need another team. You already got 3. Florida's 3. California's too many. Texas would just become unbearable with the possibility of an all Texas Super Bowl. I like the idea of it in Portland just because you look at how the NBA has treated the Trailblazers throughout the years. They've kept it consistent. Ownership has been fine. The idea, even though it's small, with enough kind of funders, because all you need is a billionaire who's willing to spend money. Let's be honest here. You get the billionaire who's willing to spend money, or that ownership group who spends money, and you get a lot of like passes on taxes. It's gonna happen, right? I'm just going through my head because we could just get rid of the Cleveland Browns and just rebrand them, and I'm a happy Charles. But that doesn't happen. They're just so bad. I mean, Maryland,
Yeah.
even though because technically
Baltimore's
Washington
there.
Redskins. Well, Washington Redskins is like the capital team, so technically Baltimore is just what the Annapolis is in Maryland, right? You could do something with that, or we could just go all in, just put Hawaii, and just for the fun of it, why not? You're already doing the Pro Bowl, or used to do the Pro Bowl. But aside from
Aloha
that, unless we're
Stadium's
gonna do
falling
them
apart, so they can't really do it in that. They'd have to build a new stadium.
So let's all
Bakersfield
agree on
Browns.
one thing. Yeah, Maryland, okay. Montana Mules, and that would be your specialty drink. That's the name of the team. But I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of your choices that you had.
Nice.
Okay, all right. I've thought of the only like expansion scenarios I really thought about, not in NFL, was just for baseball. Just what 2 cities would be the next 2 to have a 32 team league, because I think that's where the NBA and baseball are going to go soon enough. Not that the NHL is getting their 32nd team. So I'm thinking Montreal, because they've earned it. They've shown they've got the support with the Blue Jays spring training games there. The support is already there from the Expos. I'm sure they're going to do a Cleveland Browns thing and just rebrand the expansion team as the Expos of old, and then hopefully they won't be as awful as the Browns have been, since they've kind of been reestablished. And it's hard for me to think of. I mean, Portland has always been, because that would be a natural rivalry with the Seattle team. Vancouver, because it'd be another Canadian team, so let's just add a third Canadian team, and another natural rival for Seattle anyways. And of course there's like the third Texas team thing, but I don't know if San Antonio would be big enough to support a baseball team, to be honest. So I've only really thought of the West, because I think there's enough teams out east of the Mississippi, that I think any expansion would be towards the West, much like what the NHL just did with Seattle and Vegas. So and I think the NBA will probably just have Seattle and even Vegas too. At this point, they might as well, and add another Western team there, and realign after that. Have 6 and move one of those West teams out east or something, like Memphis or something. But all right, so the Buccaneers just changed their uniforms,
Oh yeah.
and let's see if we can find it here first. If it'll pop up. on
I'm
my
so
screen.
happy that they changed it.
Oh yeah, no, it's a slam dunk of a uniform change. I'll tell you that much.
We were talking about it, Francisco, that I saw Chris Creamer's the the concept art that he saw or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
or maybe that was Paul Lucas. I don't remember. But I said I was disappointed that they didn't have any orange in it. Well, they ended up having orange in it.
Right. I can't seem to
So
bring it up on the screen here for some reason. It's not popping up. Give me a second, but keep talking. Well, we can describe it to you. I'll tell you that much. It's basically, hey, remember when the Buccaneers were good and they won a Super Bowl? Let's do that again.
I mean, I think they could have used a bit more orange. I don't think they have it on the numbers, right?
Well, let's see. Let's have it pop up here real fast.
Looks like
Oh,
their
come on, I
logo
had it for a second.
on the white uniforms.
Let's see. I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah. I'm having trouble with the browser function on this. So, let's see if it'll hang on for me. Alright, so sports logos. But it was a long time coming. I think most teams, because remember when Nike came in as the official uniform provider for the NFL, they kind of went a little crazy with a lot of the NFL teams' looks. I guess one of the most egregious of them was the Buccaneers and the Cleveland Browns. The change to the Cleveland Browns, they've ruined both of those teams' looks, if you will. The Browns. It doesn't help that the Browns have remained awful. So now, not only have you gotten rid of probably the only good thing that you had going for you was your uniforms, now you guys look like crap and play like crap. So that's what. And the Buccaneers were kind of the same thing. I mean, it was an awful uniform, and they played awfully as well. Awful to mediocre. 30 for 30. 30 interceptions, 30 touchdowns, right? That's basically the Buccaneers. And that's the way they've been for years now. So
I looked at the uniforms again. So they do have the orange outline on the numbers as well, and then also on the pant stripes. So I think I really couldn't have asked for any more than that.
Right.
They did a really good job with it. Maybe they could have put some orange into the logo as an accent color, but I can't think of much more they could have done. I mean, it's just such a clean look. It's infinitely better than what they just had. I really like it. It's a great look.
The one change I would have made was to make the logo, the helmet logo, smaller like it used to be. Just not have that big giant in your face logo, but even then it doesn't. It's not ruined, it doesn't ruin the rest of the look. It still matches. I just kind of, for consistency's sake, with the old look, or this modern take on their old look, just to have the smaller logos, and you can see the entire sword and flag logo there. So that's probably the only change I would have made. Did you guys see that Tom Brady has registered 2 trademarks?
Yep.
Tampa
Bay and Tom, or it was Tampa Brady.
Oh, how Tampa Bay? I mean, come on now.
Well, someone's gonna make it, so why as well have him do it, right? I can't blame him.
I can't blame him, but it sounds so awful.
The only thing I think is kind of a little B word about him is the fact that he had to pressure Chris Godwin to switch in the numbers. I get that you're TB12, but come on, you could be more than that. It's okay. But in the NFL, I think they don't really like switching the numbers. NBA, it's a different story, and MLB, at the end of the day, it's whatever. But I kind of want to see him being like TB11, the diet version, just to mess with people, or something of that nature. But poor Chris Godwin, he actually played better than his position would have given him on that crappy team. And even though Brady's in there, he had to relinquish it. I hope he at least paid him money or something. I don't know. But that's just me and the pettiness of loving numbers. So this is a good question since we have Freddie, and I just want to ask it because it's going to be fun. We're talking about favorites. Do numbers actually matter? Like, this is my varsity number, or this is my number that I want to do, because we have the Brady debacle. And I'm not saying it's a debacle, but I'm just calling it debacle for him, needing number 12. And then you had Todd Gurley having to get Deion Sanders' number from 3 to 21. And then the joke is that Deion Sanders didn't consent to it. And Deion's like, nah, man, I was just joking. He's like, nah. But for you as a fan, or just your opinion as an analyst, do you care, or even if you were in the position, does having a number in a professional sport really define you, or is it just, fluff?
I think it's something that we've kind of fluffed up into something that matters. I don't think it really matters, although, I'm a human being and I have numbers that I like and numbers that I don't like, or numbers that I like more than others. So it's understandable.
I mean, I can also see guys, having some sort of attachment to a number. I think all of us have a favorite number, and if it's something that you've used your whole life, it might feel a bit odd to all of a sudden not have that number anymore. So I can see why some guys might be maybe not concerned, but feel weird about not having a number and can be wanting to get it back. But at the same time, I do think that it's kind of fluffed up a bit.
Well, I mean, the original use of numbers, as far as I remember, the Yankees only used it to denote 1 through 9 in their lineup. So that's what it used to be about. And then suddenly, when they started retiring them, then it became something about your legacy and that stuff. So yeah, Tom Brady's looking at, look, I'm number 12. I've always been number 12. I'll be number 12. The first day I've been in the NFL to the last day I'm in the NFL. And not to have something weird or different it's kind of like the Michael Jordan 45 jersey. Like there was like the saying that the players didn't really fear him when he came back as number 45, and then I think he switched to number 23 in the middle of a playoff series, and suddenly it made more sense for it kind of brought back that fear in other players. Oh, that's Michael Jordan, he's back. So numbers psychologically now, especially for great players, do matter. And sometimes they signify something. Sidney Crosby has 8-7 because he was born on August 7th, 1987. So it made sense that he has number 87 for him. So then it becomes part of that. And then, then it's about whatever your dad or your mom's favorite number was. Alex Ovechkin wears number 8 because his mom wore that when she was on the Russian Olympic basketball team. So that's why he wears number 8. And so I think now numbers do matter. I think they matter. As a Marlins fan, it's kind of hard not having anything to aspire to for any of those other players, because all the great players just leave. So we don't have any of those magnificent numbers that teams like the Yankees do. Like, there's a certain aura for a fan base, for players, for everybody to see. Oh, look, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. All those are retired, basically all consecutive numbers for the Yankees, and yet, the Marlins have zilch. That's why Pat Riley retires numbers, even for players that they've kind of left on bad notes. Shaquille O'Neal's 32 is retired for the Heat, even though he left on a bad note, and he was only there basically 2.5 seasons, really, or 3.5 seasons. That was it. That was all for Shaquille O'Neal. But the Heat retired them because one, it shows to other players, especially in the future for free agency and such. Look, You do some great stuff here, we'll remember you forever, or at least until the sun burns up the earth. And then, you know, and that's something that'll carry on, because that means that at some point they're going to retire LeBron James's number. So it means something. The Timberwolves, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they have the Kevin Garnett and the owner have beef with each other. So number 21 might not go up for the Timberwolves, which is insane to think about, that your greatest player ever is not going to have his number retired. And so it might be a thing that forces ownership to not be stupid and not allow something like that to happen. So numbers do matter now. Yeah, as much as it's probably a thing in all of our imaginations, it's part of the sports traditions now. So now it does matter. So I can see why Tom Brady would want number 12 after all this. And I think he's earned it at this point. All right.
And then do we want to quickly go over the Colts, or do we want to move on?
Well, I mean, the Colts, they didn't make... They changed their word mark logo, which is... The C logo is pretty cool. The one that they did for the letter C. Basically,
that was really cool.
It's a C, and then in the middle of like the empty space, instead of just like a regular C, it's the outline of the state of Indiana. That's really cool. I like seeing stuff like that. It's kind of like the Carolina Hurricanes, and their hurricane flag logo has the outline of the state of North Carolina in it. That's pretty cool. So it's always cool to see like nods to the states or to the local area inside of uniforms or in logos. I don't know. Is there anything that jumps out at you for the Colts? They're still blue and white.
I mean, that was it. I like you mentioned, that C I really enjoyed.
Okay. What else is there? Do I have like a minor league team I could just talk about for no reason whatsoever? Let's see if I could find it. If anybody else has any suggestions as to a segment? There's no Fulmer Cup because nobody's getting in trouble, which is unfortunate.
Well,
fortunate and unfortunate at the same time. What is it?
I can attack on the NFL a little bit because I guess this is going to be just contrarian corner, which is great because it's kind of refreshing to hear from Freddie, who does a lot and really contributes when it's NFL season. So this allows me to do an opportunity, kind of talk to him and you guys too.
Mm-hmm.
Is it me, or why do I sucker myself in to reading draft predictions from either Matt Rank over at NFL.com or Mel Kiper, any kind of draft predictions? Because these are people who are getting paid to be kind of like 60% correct, because a lot of the top fives are the sure things. And I'm looking at today because it's so much now, and this is what's proliferating ESPN. Freddie, I don't know how you're watching ESPN. I kind of refuse to, because it's kind of like, two old guys in their 40s who both got out of jail drinking 40s in the background saying, hey, remember that time we did this? Yeah, I did this. Because now we're like, oh, NFL season, who's going to pick Joe Burrow? Let's do Chase Young. Let's do this. And then here I am on my lunch break or whatever. I'm reading Mel Kiper's draft predictions. I'm reading this person's draft predictions, even though it's been the same of Joe Burrow, Chase Young, Becton, doing this and this and this, Jeff Okuda, Tristan Wirfs. So for each of us, do you find an appeal in any kind of sport, but we'll go to NFL because the draft is 9 days away. Do you find an appeal to reading draft predictions? And then do you even think it's really necessary? Or are we just jealous of these men and women who are actually getting paid just to kind of BS? And I know I'm a lawyer, so I get paid to BS, but at least I have actually a real consequence to what I do. Like, I might be BS because I'm advocating for somebody. Mel Kiper, he's always going to kind of roasted when he's wrong about picks. And then guys, he's like, we always think about a couple of years ago when it was they drafted Marshall Faulk when the Colts did it, and he just crapped on it because they picked him instead of a quarterback that didn't do much. I think that was the years when they had Forgive me because it's been so long, but one of the Harbaughs is a quarterback, and then they didn't get this guy. And, the only thing that Mel Kiper's known for, aside from just making the easy pick, and I think it's all unanimous that Joe Burrow is the predicted pick. Whether or not he's picked in Cincinnati is irrelevant to me in this argument. But here's Mel Kiper saying, oh, you have to buy my ESPN Plus subscription to see my rankings. I'm like, I'm almost going to because I'm bored, but I'm not going to. So he's known for that. And then his weird hair, because he literally looks like a walking villain in a subgenre fantasy, like Harry
some
Potter,
sort of weird bird,
more kid versions. He's basically Mr. Burns when you think about it. If you've seen the episode of The Simpsons where he's Dracula, and if you haven't, everybody listening now, go see it, and then you'll see Mr. Burns in his old Dracula suit, and then Mel Kiper, and then you're like, yeah, I see it. So that's my question to you guys on the floor. Very long-winded.
No problem. I'll start it off by saying I think when you predict stuff like that, and when you predict stuff like how games are going to go, like I do with Fred Rank, it's great to be right, but it's also fun when you're wrong because you learn something. Something that you weren't expecting to be the case. You learned that a team can rise to the situation, or that someone maybe wasn't as good as you thought they were, or that certain matchups aren't what you were expecting.
Okay.
But do you feel, let me ask you this. So for you, it's because you do it for fun, not for profit, but do you feel, maybe you're getting money on the side. We certainly don't pay you for contributing with Fred Ranks. We wish we could, but we're poor. But you're coming into, I think part of it is there's a lot of oversaturation. Just on the ESPN side, it's Kiper, and then it's the other guy whose name I forget. But then you get into the analysts, and they're doing their own predictions. And then you get to NFL.com, and then you get Bleacher Report, and it's not a science. I would feel for a lot of the top fives. I would like to see people actually hit on the trades that are made in the first couple rounds. There's only one person on NFL.com, and I really wish I remember his name, but I didn't plan this out, who actually predicts more than the first round. He goes the first 4 rounds, which are probably the most relevant to where you're going to get some real blue-collar talent and then real talent as well. But so let me ask you this, and I know it's kind of a loaded question, because if you're getting paid for this, whether you're right or you're wrong, are you necessarily bringing anything to the table, or are you just now at Mr. Popularity, and the reason why we come to you and appeal to you is because we just like you now? We like the Freddie persona. We like the Mel Kiper persona, look like Mr. Burns with his weird hairdo. Because I feel that a lot of it's just popularity now. I know Mel Kiper's name, but I forget the other guy's name on ESPN, who is actually more right half the time in the last couple of years than Mel. Thank you, McShay.
I think it's a little, at this point, I think it's personality, because it's the reason why I stopped watching ESPN, is because now they focus more on the personalities than they do on actual analysis. And I guess it all starts with, the whole First Take thing, Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. That's when suddenly, when the great guys got off of the being anchors on SportsCenter and stuff. All the oldies, basically. Stuart Scott, rest in peace. John Saunders, rest in peace as well. Rich Eisen is off doing his own thing, when he's got a pretty cool podcast / radio show he does that I listen to. Scott Van Pelt has his own show now, so he's not, those guys. But those guys are more about yes, they'll give you your opinions, but they at the same time they're not personalities in the in your face type of way, which I think on the big stuff ESPN has done, SportsCenter and NFL Live and things like that. That's what they're looking for more than anything else, for ratings and stuff, to feed off to all the freaking normies and sheep out there that like to consume that type of garbage. And all the plebes, as I call them. The people that are like, okay, fine, I'll buy a Switch and I'll play Animal Crossing. Yes, but do you ever play Pikmin? Have you ever played the classic Pikmin 2? No, come down to me on that deep level, and then I'll start listening to your gaming opinions. That's the same thing for me in sports. I don't care about the personalities and Mel Kiper's weird nose and his freaky hair that Charles has mentioned. Like, I don't care about Stephen A. Smith screaming about how much the Knicks freaking suck because he's a Knicks fan. He's suffering. Whatever, man. You're a Knicks fan. You know what you were getting into. Like, I don't care about that anymore. I used to care about what they, it's not a whole stick to sports thing, but it's like, give me that. Give me the news. Give me the highlights like they used to be. And I don't care about that. And I care about analysis too. That's why I listen to sports radio more when they talk to beat writers and things like that, because those guys are there all the time with the teams that they're with. They're more they're not subject to, I mean, some of them have personalities, but they're not up there, so they're not subject to it all going to their heads. So I forgot what the heck my point was at the end of all this at this point, but I think it's still more about personalities than anything else. Who cares if you're wrong? ESPN doesn't care.
Let me tell you what the payoff to this is, and I'll leave it at this as my final remark, because we talked about what's the whole point of listening to all these people, but who was hired as the Raiders general manager not 2 years ago? Mike Mayock. And Mike Mayock was known for being the draft guy on NFL.com. He didn't do like the Gil Brandt thing or Matt Rank where they just said, hey, or is it Adam Rank, regardless, or they just kind of get rid of everything, or they just list out year by year. Mayock would do a mock draft once a year, right before the big one, and then he was known for it, and then now he has a position. So, and mind you, I think you would be in dire straits if you hired a lot of the professional draft guys to be your GMs, but there was a weird corollary, a weird benefit, because here I am, we're talking about the appeal. Well, there's appeal to the norms, but now there is an appeal to a professional standpoint, a level, because there was nothing that Mayock did not have the resume of being a GM. He was not like a Mike Tannenbaum who was supposed to be a salary cap negotiator getting multiple chances. It was a one-shot kind of deal, made the trades, and then drafted certain people, and he might have drafted well last year. They went 7-9. He might draft again this year. Draft well, at least to say, this year. But that's the other thing that kind of popped into my mind. That being said, I guess it's because we have something to watch soon, which will be the draft, and I don't really like to watch the draft, but now I'm kind of curious. So I just want to hear everybody's thoughts on my little rants of things and Mel Kiper's face.
We could always talk about Mel Kiper's face, right? Okay. Oh, guys, we're at our halfway point. Just noticed we're 1 hour and 3 minutes in, so it is our word from our non-sponsors, people, places, things, concepts, what have you, that you've been enjoying over the last week or so. Freaking browser's not working on here, but I'll figure it out anyways, and we'll just talk about it. So who wants to go first this week?
Freddie, do you want to do the honors this week?
Oh, sure, I'll go first.
Yay.
My non-sponsor, something that I kind of wanted to get into earlier, but I guess I didn't have the chance, which was quarterbacks who I would sign if I were my expansion teams in the NFL XL. And so I've been doing this sort of thing where I've been looking at who's currently in the league or who's kind of floating around it as a free agent, but and I've been sort of taking a look at it from like an expansion draft perspective and saying, well, who would each of these teams sign as their first franchise quarterbacks? And so I want to give a shout out to Case Keenum and Joe Flacco of the Oklahoma Mustangs, Jameis Winston and Blake Bortles of the Orlando Comets, Marcus Mariota of the Portland Paladins, Cam Newton of the Sacramento Bobcats,
Okay.
Taysom Hill and P.J. Walker of the Salt Lake Stingers,
Yes.
Jacoby Brissett of the Destroyers, Jordan Ta'amu returning to St. Louis with the Archers, and Nick Foles with the Virginia Voyagers. Keep doing what you're doing, and maybe someday the league will actually expand and you will get that chance.
Basically, no need for the AAF or XFL. We'll just have 8 more teams, and they can be terrible.
Well, the XFL is dead.
That's we didn't get to talk. Well, we'll talk about the next half. about the death of the XFL and Charles's disdain for it because it means Vince McMahon will focus on wrestling from here on out. Okay, so thank you to all those quarterbacks for being mediocre and mediocre enough to be future starting quarterbacks for the 8 expansion teams that NFL will go to. All right, I like that. I like that a lot. It was very funny. Okay, who's next?
I don't know. I want to go last this week, if that's all right.
All right, that's fine.
I could take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, guys, with the quarantine, I've been doing a lot of sick gaming, like unhealthy amount, but a healthy amount of it. And a lot of it's just kind of going through my backlog. And in the last 2 weeks, I have dedicated 25 hours worth of gaming to this one particular game that I've had it. I've heard great things about it. It was in Game of the Year contentions for the PS4, but I never really acknowledged it. I bought it for like Black Friday, like 2 Black Friday goes for like $15. And I've kind of dived in and I went headfirst into the water, and it is just a refreshing breath of fresh air. And that's Horizon Zero Dawn. To not kind of go into spoiling of it because I don't necessarily want to, but I'm just going to read the back cover of the thing that I have of the box art. Say, Earth is ours no more. 1,000 years from now, machines roam the land, and mankind's no longer the dominant species. A young huntress embarks on a journey to discover her destiny. You guys, it's so freaking cool. There's like mechanical dinosaurs, mechanical animals in there. I got on something called a tall neck, which is just looks like a brontosaurus, and I had to overwrite it. It is an original story about the re-civilization after the fall of the Earth, post-apocalyptic. Gameplay is pretty solid. It's nothing new and original, in my opinion. It's like a mixture of some of the Assassin's Creeds with some of the Arkham Asylums with some RPG-like elements, but the story is invested, strong, main central character. I like just kind of killing stuff and hunting stuff that are mechanical. There's something great about it, and I'm still uncovering new kind of machines to attack. Like yesterday, I run into something called a Thunderjaw and a Behemoth, and I'm like, yes, I want to destroy that. It's crafting as resources. I can make outfits. I can modify my weapons. I can make it stronger. And the OCD inside me just wants to be strong. And what I found, and this is kind of weird, but it has a strong central female character. And my Game of the Year last year featured a strong female character, which was Control. You guys should play it if you have a PS4 or an Xbox One or a PC. Same thing's going Horizon. I won't call it Game of the Year of 2020 because it came out in 2017, but it does have a expansion pass, which I'm probably actually going to buy because it's $10, the Frozen Wild, and it's supposed to actually expand on the story. So it's more time invested. The game log from howlongtobeat.com says the game can range from 50 to 60 hours. Oof. I'm kind of close halfway through it now. We're unraveling more of the story, and I kind of like it because the last couple weeks I played Crash Bandicoot 2, Link's Awakening, Luigi's Mansion 3, Guacamelee 2, all shout-outs to them, but they're a little bit light on the story. They're cute, they're charming. Francisco knows my advancements going to Link's Awakening. Aside from the very depressive ending that I felt in my soul, this one's kind of like a hit in the face. It's like, hey, do you like sci-fi? Do you like a little bit of that low fantasy? And do you also like character build? And then apparently there's some people involved. And then yesterday on a mission, I was like, man, I really kind of want a grenade. And I realized I had a slingshot that shoots elementals. And that just changed the game completely. So I've been enjoying it. It's one of those few games that I feel like it's going to stay with me for a while. So it's those games where I hate myself for not playing it earlier, but now is the time to do it because it's kind of tough being an attorney playing something that's game length is about 50 hours. So like everything else in life, what you need falls into place. And I'm very happy that I got a chance to play it. So Horizon Zero Dawn, it's probably like 10 or $15 for your PS4. If you have not played it, played it. If you haven't bought it to play it, buy it. Andrew, or anybody else, and it's just a good investment of time. And promo code Bout Time.
Okay.
I guess I'll go. I'll go next. So I can't get the browser going. You know what, guys? I'm gonna buy a gaming PC. I think I'm finally like my
Yeah.
computer is pissing me off now because it's not working the way I
That
wanted to
stimulus
for the
check.
show. So yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna pay my rent. I'm just gonna buy a gaming PC. Anyways, my non-sponsor is gonna be Baseball Reference. Really,
Yeah.
I could say all the sports reference websites because they're all like a family. Hockey reference, basketball reference. I think there's a college football reference too. And there's a bunch of them, but I guess baseball reference for me because I've been doing lately a string of baseball simulations for our channel where I will pit an old version of our teams, the Yankees, the Rays, and the Marlins, versus whatever team they would have played on that night on their schedule. So I've done the Yankees and the A's previously, the Rays and the Astros, and the Marlins and the Braves. Our next one will be the Phillies and the Marlins. So, stay tuned for that. But one of the fun things I do is you look up all these old players and it's hard to find some of these guys. There was a starting pitcher for the Rays named Ryan Roop, who I had no idea existed, but he did, and he was not very good at what he did. But he made it to the major leagues, and it was a long journey and all that stuff. Of course, he very hard work, but it's hard. It was hard to find information about him. But BaseballReference.com has all of that information. Even if you played only one game in Major League Baseball and only had one at bat or only went on the field one time, you are officially a baseball player, and they will have that information logged into their website, where you were, against who, on what date, how old you were when you made your debut. Heck, Hockey Reference, I checked up David Ayers. He's got his numbers up there. I checked up Scott Foster. He's up there too. So the reference websites, they're on their game. I love them. They are perfect for looking up all kinds of scenarios, from like whether you're trying to project if somebody's going to make the Hall of Fame, or you just want to figure out what the heck did this guy do on this one day in baseball history or basketball or football or hockey history. They have it there. So promo code I didn't know you existed.
Okay. My turn, I
Man, I
guess.
forgot my promo code.
Oh, what's your promo code?
Go NFLXL.
Yeah, that way that works. I love the double meaning. You need to trademark that. You should trademark that. All right, before Tom Brady calls it NFL Tom or something.
My non-sponsor, another video game, is going to be Cities Skylines.
Oh, I saw.
It is the best way I can describe it in one sentence is it's like SimCity. It's like an updated version of SimCity, and it's you can do it the old-fashioned way, build it up from scratch. Which I will do eventually, but I'm kind of using it almost like a Zen garden. So I've got all the cheats on. I've got unlimited money, and I'm just building my perfect ideal city, and kind of tending to it like a virtual Zen garden. And I'll build another city which I will ravage with disasters at some point. But it's a great way to kind of, de-stress, kill some time. I think it's on sale right now on Steam. So if you're looking for a way to kill some time for a relatively cheap game, I'd recommend getting it.
That's a good game. I've been watching this channel on YouTube called City Beautiful, and he talked to the developers of that game because he's a city planner, or at least that's what he's into. So, and what went into their decisions as to constructing the game. So that's I like that. That's pretty cool, man.
Promo code Virtual Zen Garden.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that's a word from our non-sponsors. So I guess we'll move on to XFL talk. This is the last time. What happened?
Freddie, you said that you were going to head out at this point. Or you can.
If you're going to talk about XFL, I can stay on.
Yeah, whatever. It's all up to you, man.
All right.
So unfortunately, the XFL was another victim of the virus and is not going to be there. And Charles is very sad.
Charles is super sad. So let's talk about it pragmatically, and then maybe we save for Charles is upset for the cage and the Vince McMahon purposes. But they filed for bankruptcy. It turned out in those numbers that the WWE, the organization, the company actually owned about 25% of the shares. So that might impact Vince and WWE, because if I'm any shareholders, I want them voted out because they use funds for a different thing that failed out, even though he said he was going to sell his stocks to create Anthem Sports and all this other fun stuff. But I felt bad that it kind of went out, not so much because I like seeing Vince McMahon succeed, but it seems that it had its opportunity to grow and it was a victim of circumstances. The feel-good story was, of course, PJ Walker, who is now in Carolina. So it kind of worked against what the AAF want to do, which was just basically saying we're just going to kiss the butt of Roger Goodell and get players ready, whereas the XFL says we're just going to kind of shine. It had its originalities. It had its weird ways of doing the points. You had some known figures such as Bob Stoops in there, even Mark Trestman, if you want to call Mark Trestman a big name. I don't necessarily call him a big name, despite the fact he was a good offensive coordinator for the Ravens. I think the year after they won the Super Bowl, they lost a lot of money coming into it, but it just seems like that the NFL is just impervious. Not that anybody really wanted real competition to the NFL. I know I really didn't, but what I wanted was just an opportunity to see maybe if we use these rules, does the NFL want to kind of take it? There's always the issues of overtime, how to use the overtime, because I still kind of feel that the whole you make a field goal first in overtime, but they having a chance to shoot the touchdown kind of takes away from the team that got the field goal first, but yet it becomes sudden death, I think, in overtime in the playoffs. So, what's good for the goose, not good for the gander. And, there were some players who were on the fringes that were coming back in that could have used that spotlight, especially since the new NFL CBA allowed for a higher roster, just practice squads and also game days. That, you kind of want to scout an entire season of the XFL, I would feel, for guys who are still relatively young. They've probably been available to play for 2 or 3 years, because they're just going to go onto the wayside. Not that we have a ridiculously deep draft, these corners and, well, not corners necessarily, but wideouts. You have linemen that are coming in there, some defensive line guys. So those guys who are making the progresses that could have had a complete good field goals or feel good story, like PJ Walker, don't get the opportunity to. Mind you, it's not as if Aaron Murray was going to get selected out of it. Aaron Murray played trash. But for other guys who, if they were on the cusp of it, right, because everybody's getting it together. So that, and we lose out on that little weird void of time, because I know attendance was going up, ratings were going down, but what do you expect? It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So that's just kind of my feelings on the XFL itself going out for good. It ain't coming back. It's canceled. It's bankrupt. What do you guys think?
Well, I know a lot of people are, trolling on the internet saying, oh, the XFL died again, blah, 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 blah. But I don't buy that. You can't foresee a pandemic of historic proportions like this. And it came at probably the worst possible time for a new league. They're still trying to establish themselves. I don't know. They said that they had 3 years worth of money that they could have gone with, but that's 3 years worth, assuming that you're getting the sales and whatever. And I honestly think they could have made it, because you had a very solid financial backing from, or supposedly solid financial backing from Vince McMahon. Um, and then also they outsold the entire AAF in like 2 weeks. So I think they had something going. They had great media partners. They seemed like they could have done it. It's just they got really raw deal when it comes to a freaking pandemic. So there's really no fault of their own, and you can't really say that the XFL died again, because you just can't anticipate something like that.
Freddie, what about you? What's your feelings?
I mean, I think you guys are making a lot of good points. The point I want to make is about what people are saying about the Houston Roughnecks and how they're calling them sort of the champions of the 2020 XFL League. And all I want to say on that note is, the best team doesn't always win the championship. And so I feel like you can call them the best team, because they were 5-0 and no other team had one win or fewer. And, they were way out ahead in my ratings, which is a whole separate thing. But you can't call them the champions. They didn't win a championship game. And I think it's pretty much as simple as that.
Yeah, kind of like '94 Montreal Expos kind of thing. Like they were the best team, yes, but they didn't win it.
They weren't the champions. There were no champions.
Okay, but how do you feel? I mean, it's so hard to speculate. I mean, because all this now it's speculation. They probably would have survived this season and would have gone to 2021. I think it looked that way.
I think they would have, because the numbers you're seeing on how fair the situation seemed, those are reflective of the fact that they thought that money was going to still be coming in this whole time. That people were going to be going to games and games were going to be being played, and that they were selling all kinds of merchandise and stuff. That the TV numbers were still coming in, and so I think if it hadn't been for this whole pandemic, they would have been in a way better situation, and they would have kept going on until, at least for another 2 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was
because we know the numbers were steadily decreasing, but we don't know where they would have bottomed out.
It was. I mean, this was definitely the most well thought out of either the AAF or XFL 1.0. This was the most well thought out. It seemed they planned it so far ahead that, and like Andrew said, you can't plan out logistical nightmare of a pandemic. But it looked like they were, and I guess like you were saying, probably would have like a 3-year plan at least to survive and see how far they could go, or at least create a foothold in some of these cities. They didn't need to have a sold out 60,000 plus seat stadium. They were good with 20K to 40K, or between those numbers, and the crowds that they did get, like the New York crowds, they always seemed like they were good crowds. The Houston crowds, it seemed like they were gaining a foothold. They were definitely dependent on ticket revenues. They needed people to show up and go watch them, which is kind of like the model the NHL kind of works on. So people would have, especially if you're a football only fan, look, this is the best football we're gonna give you from now until August when college football comes back. It would have gained a following. I think people were more receptive to that than the other leagues, especially because the first XFL was kind of like, whoa, look, it's the early 2000s, bro. Let's do some weird stuff with football, yeah. Whereas this one was like, no, let's put together a legitimate sports league, give these players a shot, change up the rules to something that we think is sensible, and see where it goes. That's kind of why I think it was more endearing to people now than it was before that.
Francisco, can we have you just use that voice for the final 20 minutes and just say tubular?
Yeah.
Like pure surf ninjas, man. Like, we're talking about a callback, pure surf ninjas.
That was my
Love it,
that
man.
was my if I was a kid on Rocket Power voice. So yeah.
I
Best
can't
character
believe you
Rocket
just brought
Power,
up
yeah.
surf ninjas. That's a
Do you
blast from
not
the
talk
past.
about
Holy
surf
moly.
ninjas? Do you not? Like, there's certain things. What better than finding some ancient evil with my buddies as I hang 10, and we got Rocket Power in there. Side note, you want to know another Netflix show? Hybrid combination live action with animation style of Surf Ninjas meets Rocket Power. I don't really remember Otto Rocket, I think it was his name. Yeah, I just remember Otto and Sam.
Yeah.
So they transfer over to the Surf Ninjas, and then they have to go fight the dudes in the sequel. I would sign up for that. Netflix called me. I'm still here about Aces and Jammed. Please do.
Oh boy. Okay. So what was if you had to say what was the most successful thing that the XFL did, Freddie?
I think it was the fan engagement. Getting like, their social media was
That's true.
second to none.
That's very much true.
Engaging with the fans and bringing up all sorts of memes on their Twitter, and then separately you have the beer snakes in
Yes.
DC.
I was hoping you'd bring up the beer snakes.
All the luck contributed to himself.
You know what I really liked was the transparency in the officiating. It was really nice to. I mean, I know they were really, really in depth with the whole fan, like the insight to the coaches, to the players, and even to the officiating. But I enjoyed that thing about the officiating more because, look, because the Dolphins have been so terrible for a while, football is my fourth favorite sport. So the Dolphins haven't helped much, and the Seminoles haven't helped much either lately. So I don't follow football as closely as I do the other sports. So when you guys are talking football, I kind of hang back and be like, yeah, the Seminoles and Dolphins are still terrible. So I've got nothing to add here. But the XFL, when the games that I did see that they were showing on Fox and stuff or ESPN, the replay stuff really it was really cool to see. I enjoyed that a ton. I enjoyed the overtime format as well. I enjoyed the fact that the kickoffs that they didn't really have kickoff, or they had kickoffs, but it was kind of different. It was a lot more safe in a way than I can remember. I liked the rule changes that they had, which was pretty nice to see. I always akin the XFL because to a minor league in a sense, but minor leagues are great because they can experiment with different rules that the pro leagues or the major leagues aren't willing to do or are tentative in implementing. So it happens a lot in baseball and in basketball too. So I like that the XFL was willing to go there for rule changes to the sport that they thought made sense. I enjoyed that a lot. I think they did that. That was one of the best things that they did, was to show us a different way to play football that wasn't so different where it kind of turned everybody off. All right.
I concur.
Right on.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. So, rest in peace, XFL 2020 to 2020. We hardly knew ye. And I think, do you guys think there will be a chance, like, after all this is over and we can all go outside and be normal again, do you think it'll come back in some way? Like, do you think, okay, they'll cut the losses for now, and then 2 years from now, Vince McMahon, a little more senile will come back and be like, let's do this again.
Nah, and it just comes down to
for sale and so someone could end up reviving it. As soon as this is all is over, maybe they need a couple years to prepare everything so that it's a good product on the field. But it could happen. It might not be Vince McMahon who's doing it, but it could happen.
So Freddie, he made me think about something, and I don't think Vince would do it, and I'm coming from that single mind, but question, would the NFL want to put its hands in that cookie jar and kind of make their own little hybrid G League? Because that's essentially what you're doing, right?
Yeah,
If you're going to sign these guys, you're doing dress rehearsal, basically.
I mean, that was the whole goal of the AAF, right? Like, even how...
I think that was something that Tom Dundon was pushing once he got his hands in there, was that he wanted it to be, with the collective bargaining agreement being something that was coming up last year. I think that was something that he wanted to get involved in, and then he pulled the plug when he figured out that that wasn't going to happen.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good
Tom
point.
Dundon is persona non grata around here, at least with Charles.
I don't mind. I like the Carolina Hurricanes. I like those bunch of jerks. So, if he's footing the bill for those guys, I'm all for it. Okay, so, man, I was gonna say one more thing about the XFL, but now I lost it. Oh well, I guess it was just like the XFL. It just didn't pan out. All right, so that's our XFL talk. So,
Freddie had suggested something. I forgot to bring this up. And Freddie, if you want to stay on for this, by all means.
What is it?
What's that?
What was it?
Kyle Larson.
Oh yeah. I don't have all that much to say about it, to be honest.
Do you guys want to talk about it, or?
He's the one who used the racial slur because he lost a video game, right?
He didn't lose a video game. He was trying to get people's attention.
is he a goon?
They weren't listening to him.
Can this be our goon?
Yeah.
What's that?
Combo?
I'm clicking it.
Both are Gottlieb Goon.
I'm clicking it.
and
It's
then
clicked.
progressive.
It's we've moved on. You go ahead. I don't think I can put it up on the screen here because it's not really working for me, but I'll try. But go ahead, Andrew.
What an idiot.
There we go.
I mean, he tanked his own career. He was just fired today.
Yep, there it is.
And he's by his team, and he's suspended by NASCAR as a whole. At a NASCAR standpoint, he really did not help
The image, that's for sure.
the stereotype of, I don't want to use a negative term, but I'm sure you guys know where I'm going with it.
Can I say it? Or can I give you the gist of what they think? Basically, the hillbilly kind of like, yeehaw, Ricky Bobby type of thing. Stereotype.
Yeah, I guess that's a way to put it.
I almost went Yosemite Sam there, but whatever. Marcus Stroman wants to fight him in a UFC battle, so maybe there's some good that come out of this.
I'm for that. I am absolutely for that.
Goes to COVID-19 stuff. They could do it in Florida or they could do a wrestling match, WWE, right? So.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking.
Don't know if it was a thought. Maybe it was just a reflex.
Yeah,
A natural impulse. Okay.
That is not an impulse you should have, though.
Well, it's kind of the impulse a lot of people think how NASCAR fans have. So I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not saying all NASCAR fans are like that. That's for sure. But it's the stereotype, much like other stereotypes. Only Canadians like hockey, right? So that type of stuff. Anyway. Canadians are assholes when it comes to hockey, though. So I've said that many. I've said that many a times, and I've pissed off many Canadians when I've said it. So, all right. So that's our goon. I don't have any other goons. It's hard to find goons nowadays.
That's
But
true.
usually even in the e-sports world or iRacing, whatever you want to call it, virtual racing, there's always somebody that's willing to put their foot in their mouth. So there it is. Okay. So
I don't know. What should we talk about now?
I mean, let's see. We are time-wise, we're an hour and 35. Freddie, if you have to go, by all means. If you,
I gotta go.
yeah,
It
but
was great being on here, though.
thank
It was a
you.
pleasure having you. Thank you for your insight for around the NFL XL. Seriously, copyright that or trademark it.
I mean, it doesn't have to mean National Football League XL or 40. It can just be NFL XL. Like the ECHL just means ECHL, and the NFL would have to pay you for that trademark. I'm not a copyright / patent or trademark lawyer, so don't believe me on that. You might want to look that up, but just saying.
Definitely look into it.
All right, Freddie, we'll have a wonderful evening, and thank you again for coming on.
Thanks. You guys too.
Thanks, Freddie.
Adios. Oh, that was really nice, Andrew. Thanks for bringing him on. Actually, that was really cool. That NFL XL thing is a freaking gold mine.
I
I
know.
think. Seriously, he needs. Do we know any intellectual property lawyers who can look it up?
I think there's at least one.
I mean, I've copyrighted some of my own stuff, but I've never trademarked anything. So, okay. Let me look at my old notes. Did I have a minor league team that I didn't talk about last time or something? I talked about Iowa Wolves. Let's see. Player to remember to forget. Yeah, there's always a player we can forget or remember. Oh yeah, I had one. Here we go. I had one from last week that I didn't get to use. So there we go. So my player to remember to forget this week is Earl Watson.
All right.
The basketball player / coach.
Looks like Charles did remember somebody. Yeah, so Earl Watson, former professional basketball player, and now he's a coach. Played in the NBA, was a point guard out of UCLA. He was drafted in 2001 in the second round, 39th overall. He played for a bunch of teams here: the Seattle Supersonics, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Denver Nuggets. Went back to Seattle and was with them when they moved to Oklahoma City to become the Thunder, the Utah Jazz, and then finished his career with the Portland Trailblazers. He then became an assistant coach with the Austin Spurs, the G League affiliate of San Antonio, and then became an assistant coach for the Phoenix Suns, and then ultimately became the head coach of the Phoenix Suns, although now I think he's no longer with them. He is currently on the committee of LeVar Ball's Junior Basketball Association. And
Okay.
and then he was one time engaged to Joy Taylor, who is Jason Taylor's sister and is a host on Fox Sports 1. And I think she has her own radio program out in Los Angeles. So there you go. And she's a very beautiful woman, so he missed out. And of course Jason Taylor is a Hall of Famer from the Miami Dolphins. So there you go. That's Earl Watson. And Charles remembered him. So there you go.
So I remember him just because I believe he got the Phoenix Suns coaching position.
Yep.
2 years ago, and I thought it was just a terrible hire because normally, and we can kind of bounce off this idea for 2 seconds. There's a lot of point guards who seem to be hired as head coaches. Doc Rivers, I believe, was a former point guard. Mark Jackson was. They just kind of circulate around. And this is with Phoenix was when it was Devin Booker's, I think, second or third year. And you know how I feel about Devin Booker. I don't really think he's that great. I think he's a point producer. But when you're the only bit of talent on the team, guess what's going to happen? Them stats are going crazy. He was crazy good this year, though. And, of course, Corona. So you got out on that. But Watson came in. I don't even know if he got an interim position, but he was just hired. I think how it went was he got an interim position.
Yeah, he was the
kept
assistant
him.
coach, and then they fired whoever was the old Suns coach, and yeah, he was interim.
So he gets it, and then he's fired after a year. And then they get that Igor Karkaroff, Voldemort supporter sounding guy from Book 4, Goblet of Fire. And the whole thing was about preaching patience, and then they fire him, and now it's Monty Williams, I believe. So, like, that's just
it's the Suns being the Suns.
Exactly. So he is now the poster child of disorganization in the organization. And also, I remember playing him because I play a lot of NBA 2K, and I think the first NBA 2K I played was NBA 2K12, and I think I played with him a couple times. I don't know if he was on Indiana or whatever.
Portland, probably at the end of his career.
Portland. So that was my go-to, and I just remember saying, what a crappy hire, and then I was completely right about that. So I felt good about myself for being right. And then when they get fired, you don't want people to lose their jobs, but there's a certain kind of vindication, the snobbiness.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's the Suns, so it was just like this carousel of them trying to figure out what to do, getting number 1 picks and stuff like that, and they nothing is working out for them. They're getting schooled by a 90-year-old woman, so nothing's going good for the Phoenix Suns the last few years. So yeah, he's a perfect shining example of this organization, as you said. All right, so Earl Watson, yeah, I don't know what you did to lose Joy Taylor, but man, you screwed up. Whoa. Yeah. All right, let's get out of there. Let's see. We are at 1 hour and 41-minute mark. Is there any topic you guys want to talk about at all? Anything different? Well, there's the Diablo. What?
No, not Diablo. No.
Oh, I mean,
I was gonna say, do you have another player you remember? But I was like,
I mean, we have. I mean, there's of course the baseball talk of the realignment again, having the spring training teams staying where they're at, and just playing those as their leagues or conferences or what have you. Did you guys read up on that, or I can explain it?
Please explain.
Okay, so my idea, as I've said, and Charles has told me to retweet, and I have. But basically, spring training complexes in Arizona and Florida will be the home ballparks of the Major League Baseball teams, and then I guess Tropicana Field, Marlins Park, and Chase Field as like backups or what have you. And then the thing that they went further with was splitting the leagues into divisions. So the Grapefruit League would have a North, South, and East division. And I think the Cactus League would have like a Northwest, Southwest, and some other division, what have you. But the divisions make sense geographically, especially in Florida. So like Florida, the Yankees would be with the Phillies, who play out in Clearwater. The Yankees play out in Tampa. The Tigers play in Lakeland. The Pirates play in Bradenton, and the Blue Jays play out in Dunedin. So those are kind of north or in the Tampa area. Then the South would be the Atlanta Braves, the Baltimore Orioles, because they both play in Sarasota, the Tampa Bay Rays, who play out in Port Charlotte, going south now, and then Fort Myers for Minnesota and Boston, because and that's the South. And they're all kind of along the line I-75 there, so the travel wouldn't be that hard for them, so they'd be in one division. And then the East, which would be the Mets out in Port St. Lucie, the Marlins, the Cardinals, and Jupiter, and then the dirty, stinking, cheating Astros, and the Nationals in West Palm Beach. It makes sense, right? I mean,
it makes a lot of sense.
Geographically, makes perfect sense for Florida. Arizona, I forgot. I don't have it on me. But a lot of the teams share complexes out there, so it all makes sense when I looked into it. This makes sense, but there are qualms that I have with the setup, but of course it's just logistical stuff. But for me, rain in Florida, heat in Arizona. Those are like killers for me, especially in the summer. If this goes into the summer, and oh god, this I get depressed thinking about it going into the summer. Um, like Florida's schedule, I know we have two dome stadiums and it could work, especially like if if there's a rain out for some, like you can have some teams play in Tropicana and play at Marlins Park. But if a hurricane, God forbid, a hurricane comes, that completely destroys the scheduling that baseball would have for this. It would. Like, that'd be it. Arizona, I don't. At every time of the day in the summer, it is 100 degrees. I don't care if it's a dry heat. I think the dry heat is worse, to be honest. Now that I've been there, it sucks the life right out of you. Like, we've all been here in Florida in the freaking summer and it's all steamy and hot and sticky. But I can, like, at the very least, I'm sweating. In Arizona, there's no sweat. It evaporates from your body. All the liquid is gone from you. You are shriveling up. That's worse for me. And I can't see them playing an 11 o'clock game in the Arizona sun. They would have to play at Chase Field, and there's 15 teams that have to share one facility. That's not going to work either. Those are my qualms. I'd love for it to happen, just for it to happen, or Arizona would just play straight up night games. But even then, it's going to be freaking hot. Those are my qualms. I don't know what you guys think.
I mean, I want baseball as much as the next guy, although we are getting it now with KBO and
Taiwan
and CPBL as well. So we have something at least, but I'm more worried about the players, if I'm being honest, because I don't want them to get sick just for our benefit. Sure, it'll be a massive windfall for ESPN and all these places that'll be able to air the games. I just, as much as I want sports, especially baseball, and let's be honest, if baseball is the only sport on, it is going to be more popular than it's been in decades.
Right.
People are going to watch just for the sheer fact that it's something to watch and it's sports. I mean, people are staying up till 2 in the morning Eastern to watch scrimmages in Korea.
Yeah.
All for the simple fact that it's live sports.
Honestly, okay, this is what happened. I couldn't sleep the other day, and I was up like at 5 a.m., and I was on Twitch, and there's like you said, the Chinese Professional League Baseball, whatever, which is in Taiwan. I was like, well, this is an interesting turn of events, and I watched a couple innings. It's gotten that bad for me.
Yeah, so if there's any benefit, it's that baseball is going to become America's pastime again, for the most part. But I don't want that to happen at the risk of infecting the players and then by extension their families. It's entirely possible that we're not going to have a vaccine for this thing for another year. So for them to get sick with such a terrible, terrible virus, just for a few bucks, relatively speaking, I don't feel it's worth it.
I would have some. I think the only way this would work for me is they would have to limit the amount of games per week for each team. Just so that there's less exposure, there's more open dates just in case there are cancellations due to extreme heat or rain, or at least moving games to the major league facilities to play there. So like, instead of, because some teams play literally every day of the week sometimes during the regular Major League Baseball schedule, I think most extreme, 1 game per week, basically make it like a football version of baseball, or 3 max 4 games per week for each team to play. So then you have those open dates every other day, kind of like the NHL and the NBA. So you have times for players to rest. You'd have to eliminate extra innings, essentially. Or maybe 1 extra inning and then, hey, do the NHL version, the baseball version of a shootout. It's like, all right, put the pitching machine out there. Let's see how many dingers these guys can hit in this amount of time, whatever, or in these amount of chances. Because the season's already kind of what? Let's go crazy with it. If we're gonna do this, let's go crazy with it. Let's have some fun. Whoever wins the World Series in this scenario is still a legitimate World Series champion. But let's just have some fun with it, all right? I don't care. Those are like the things that I would want in order for this to kind of work for me. And I think work for a lot of people. Let's get experimental with it if we're going to go this route. Okay. I mean, all right. Charles, we want to go to the cage. We're in the last 9 minutes here.
We'll do the cage. We'll do the cage.
Yeah, okay.
So I can't tell if the graphic up. Well, let's do it. All right. So even though I can't tell with the graphic on Twitch for whatever
It's
reason,
on.
I'm just going to start my usual thing. Welcome everybody to your weekly TruePlex, the Cage with Charles. Perfect. As we all know, full disclaimer: wrestling is not fake. It is scripted. It is a dance. It is ballet. It is poetry in motion. It's about men and women chasing championships. Men and women trying to beat the holy hell out of each other. And some people just having some good old-fashioned soap opera going on in our life. All that being said, not a lot going on in wrestling world. Not that I want to jinx ourselves. Oh, wait, I lied. Big news coming in, because we're going to kind of tie it all around to Vince McMahon and whatever baby he sacrificed over the weekend to get certain things going his way. We touched upon it earlier. The XFL is dead. What does this all mean? It means Vince is going to focus his attention on wrestling. That is terrible news for Charles and his opinion. Why? Because WrestleMania was kind of a success. You're going to hear contrarians say differently, but this contrarian liked a lot. Night 1 was better than night 2. That's just my personal opinion, but overall, it was nice. Vince is going to get ahead of himself. He's going to ruin things. It's what happened last year, because we had Kofi Mania, and also we had the wild card rule, and we can't have nice things. This is going to lead to Vince's egomaniac kind of personality to kind of transcend to a new kind of level, because what happened? Florida, in the same fell swoop of Vince McMahon lost the XFL, Florida and our governor has deemed wrestling to be essential, which means no curfew apply, which means Vince gets to come back to live shows. No more pre-taping. Now, mind you, what that means is those who want to wrestle are still going to wrestle, and those who aren't going to wrestle are going to be written off TV. So you're not going to see Roman Reigns. You're going to get Austin Theory. I like Austin Theory. He's an okay guy. He's 22. He was an NXT call-up to help fill in the need of dudes who got injured, who got sick. He had a WrestleMania match against the Street Profits with Angel Garza for Raw Tag Team Championships. It was just a match. But now, those who are hungry and those who are yes men and yes women are going to get that TV exposure. Whereas those who kind of want to do things for their safety and their family's safety, I feel, are going to get what? Blackballed. That's just me. But now, Vince's whole megalomania...
Lost you, Charles. Hello?
Is going to center on. Why? Because we're going to still have Money in the Bank. I mean, thank you, got your championship title shot by climbing a ladder. Hello?
Okay, I think you finally caught up now. I think you were behind, and they kind of zoom. You kind of spoke really fast there, but you zoomed back in. Are you here? I think there's a little bit of lag going on. Hello? I think we lost him. Andrew, you there too?
I don't hear him.
Okay, I hear you. So
All right.
I think it's on his end. All right. Well, I saw AEW on Wednesday last week. I'm gonna continue this cage here as poorly as possible. This guy
What
named
did you think?
I I watched this guy talking to a drone outside of his very swanky looking house. I don't know if it was his house or not. Then he was burning something, and he had this wild hair. I don't know who he was. I bet Charles can probably have some insight on there. So I don't know if Charles can pop in and pop back here at some point, but then I saw Cody Rhodes, the guy with the awful neck tattoo, and he beat some guy, and I was kind of taking a gap.
Hey, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, taking it
He's
back.
back.
Okay, I'm back. I was poorly talking about the AEW last week. Hello?
Did we lose him again?
Sean Spears versus Cody Rhodes.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. The guy with the awful neck tattoo won.
Hello.
I think we got him again.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. I guess it's because I was talking smack about Vince McMahon, and he probably silenced me. But let's transition to AEW for a second. You saw what it's like, the competitor. It has potential, and then it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
And they need time to build into the casual fans. I mean, how about this, Francisco? Because we all know what I'm going to say about WWE. They got lucky. DeSantis says they're essential. They're going to make money. They're going to hope they're going to get people to be in there. What's your take on AEW, the other competition, and what you saw?
I mean, they're really struggling with the whole like because at least the WWE's Performance Center, I mean, there's a bunch of money that's backed into it. They kind of put on more of a show. I don't know where the heck they were taping. I think they're in Florida too. The AEW I think is still in Florida somewhere. I think they were I forgot where they were. I think they were in Kissimmee or something like that. But presentation wasn't as as high quality as I would say. It was basically like the WWE was like the PS2 version of a game, and then like the Dreamcast version was the AEW. There was notable differences between the two, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, I was trying to get into it, and the whole guy talking to a drone thing, I was confused, but I mean, I'm a noob, so I can't really harp on too much, but I can kind of tell there is a difference in quality between the two.
Yeah, and I for one, I do like AEW to what it can bring to the table, but I also understand, this is what I'll tell one of my friends who's very diehard WWE, is that AEW has only been in existence since October. I mean, granted, it's been around before then, but Dynamite has only been around since October, so it needs time to work out the kinks, and both shows are going to have problems and weird moments without a live audience. You feed off that emotion, you feed off that crowd, you feed off the story investments. They're beginning their TNT championship bracket, so the matches are supposed to matter, but the problem is that it's the first round, so those who are supposed to get the spotlight are going to look good, but those who lose aren't going to get over anyway. Like Sean Spears, he was a jobber as Ty Dillinger over in WWE, so you would think it kind of changes a little bit on AEW, and it doesn't. This week, I believe it's Lance Archer. I think it's going against Kip Sapien, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, listen, they give you something to watch. NXT, on the other hand, its competitor to transition there, gave us something different. They gave us Ciampa Gargano 4 in a very cinematic match, the same akin to The Undertaker and AJ Styles and Bray Wyatt versus John Cena. And I got to tell you guys, I was kind of disappointed with it, but sometimes creative strokes happen and they don't all, fall in the right place. But this is going to be a weird time for wrestling regardless, because AEW is going to benefit as well, because if WWE is going to be considered essential, then AEW should be considered essential. But are you going to get people to actually watch your shows, because you're only get certain qualities? Like Money in the Bank is not going to have a lot of the high star-studded guys competing in it. You're only going to have a few. Like I respect Apollo Crews, but he's not necessarily the guy I want to see in my pay-per-view, but he might be in there. So you're not going to have a Roman Reigns you might not have other bigger names on there. So both shows are going to struggle. The ratings have been poor for obvious reasons. Maybe, I guess, the crowds might change when they realize we're in for a long haul, so might as well watch it, because it doesn't mean the product's bad. It just, you have a stance of, I need fans to watch a wrestling match. I don't need fans to hype me up, because I can watch a wrestling match and appreciate the technicians and the submission specialists and the brawlers and everything that comes in between. But some people are there for more of the emotion. Some people on either show feel that it's awkward when they're speaking to a crowd of nobody.
Yeah.
But the idea is, if I'm already watching it through television, you could be directing it towards me, because I am one of the audience. A wrestler who's done an excellent job of doing
That's
that
a good
is Drew
point.
McIntyre.
Actually, I like that point.
But there are
because
people who feel don't.
Because look, like a noob like me, it's gonna be hard for me to get into this without a crowd and all that stuff, because I can't see what moments are significant or not. Usually a crowd can kind of tell you, like, oh, and it's like, oh, I guess something really big has happened, and like, ooh, you know, that type of stuff, or boo, you know, they start booing a guy. It's like, oh, that guy's probably a douche, you know. Like, whereas now it's basically, if you're in the know, you know what's going on already. You know what's going down. So it doesn't matter whether there's a crowd there or not. So why not tailor it to those people until we can get a crowd back or what have you? Unless they're looking at this at like, hey, let's try and ease in the new people. But the only way you can do that is if you had like a pop-up video type of thing. It's like, bloop, this guy was this, like explaining it to the crowd or what have you. Or if like a separate stream, which is like a guy teaching you what's going on, you know, or going back on their history.
Well, you talked on something that I think it's actually important, because there's two ways of how you fix this. One, you make the matches go a little bit longer. They did that last week with Aleister Black versus Apollo Crews. They went damn near 20 minutes, and it kind of showcased that Apollo Crews has some talent in him. We know Aleister's talented, but these are guys who haven't been utilized as well as they should be. And two, if you want to help the casual crowds realize who's good or bad, this would have been perfect to have an on-screen GM as a presence there to make you kind of understand that cues, because when you're wrestling in a ring, two people talking trash are just two people talking trash. But to have a smarmy GM who can facilitate the good guy and the bad guy for you, and WWE has strayed away from doing that for the last year and a half or so, because of the debacle of Commissioner Corbin, I believe it was called, when Baron Corbin was overseeing. He was a commissioner. He was a Constable Corbin, and then their failures with
Constable. Was he Canadian?
Did you lose me?
No, he was just going. That was his name. It worked though, because he hated him. And AEW wants to be very anti-authority figures, so they don't even have those. But imagine having a GM saying, these are the matches that matter, and they can hype it up. You're going to see two excellent wrestlers. These guys have had a feud or whatever. They can facilitate it, because WWE doesn't use managers either. They're using Zelina Vega, who's creating a new stable with Andrade, Angel Garza, and Austin Theory, which is a playoff, I think, of Andrade's old CMML, Los Ingobernables faction, but we'll see. But you don't have enough managers that kind of make you really hate a side, you know? So if you're going to get the fans in there, you got to either give them more mic time, but you're not going to have that crowd reaction. So you're going to know who you like, Francisco, when you see them go for 20 minutes. You can say, hey, I like this Marvel, but now you need to feel the story of why a guy should rise or fall, or, you know, a person can get a payback. And that's something they're going to have to encounter, because I think the ratings are going to be what they are for a while, because people are going to want to watch the TV shows and whatnot, but it's not going to be overly terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think it was awful. I didn't think it was a bad showing. Like, I was engaged enough to watch it, you know? I mean, there was this guy with, like, the really tall, gigantic guy with, like, he just kept staring. I was like, oh, that guy, I'm like, I like the way he was staring and stuff, but, you know, I'm still trying to get into it and see what's going down. So I'll see what happens tomorrow. If, I mean, I might as well tune in, right?
Yeah, might as well. What else you got to do, right?
Yeah, that's true. I can play Wii Fit.
Or we can all just get on Rocket League and just hate ourselves.
That's true as well. We could all just be on a team, and I can, yeah. All right. So is that all?
Yes, I think we lost Andrew.
Yeah.
He messaged us on the chat, so
I guess we'll close it out.
that's
then.
all I got on Wrestling Cage. Yeah, we'll do the real MVP segment, I
Yeah.
guess. Maybe he can call in. So I guess I'll just start it, and usually in Louis' place. So real MVP, our segment of everybody who is the MVP of the forefront. So our natural disclaimers kind of go to anybody in the health field, doctors, nurses, hell, even the people at the urgent care, anybody who's helping out with the CV issue, anybody who's donating, the superstars, the athletes, the rich, the wealthy, even though there's probably not as much as there should be to help us out. Anybody who's doing an effort to help people in the pandemics, moms, dads who are teaching their kids at home when they got to work their jobs. Teachers themselves. My sister's a teacher, and she still has to go teach kids. I have friends who are teachers. They still got to put on that forefront. Maybe the court system, depending what kind of law you practice for considering certain things essential. But nah, right? That side isn't the real MVP, but at least we're keeping certain people in jail. I don't know. But so anybody out there in the health industry that is putting a good benefit to the CV situation and putting their lives at risk to save others, we thank you. We think you're the real MVP. And
yeah, I mean,
I think that goes to show I can't really stick out.
I mean, there's so many. I guess the people I've been dealing with, USPS mail people delivering mail packages, Amazon, DHL, FedEx, UPS, all those people, because they got to go out there and deliver us the stuff that we can't go out and get anymore. So they got to deal with all those packages and who knows what's on them and that type of stuff. So all those people, all the people that are just in distributing warehouses and stuff, and for all these places as well, all the pilots, everybody in those networks too. Food delivery people, because I ordered DoorDash for the first time since this stuff has started, and I gave a nice tip to the person doing that. So thank you to all those people, restaurants that are still working, trying to survive and all of this. And I had an idea, I might just do some Yelp reviews of places that I've been to over the past year or so that I never made a review for. Who knows if they survive, but I might as well give them something to think about, maybe order from them as well when I can. Yeah, there's so many. we could do a whole show about this, to be honest, and maybe we should. But that's it. That's all I got. We still don't have Andrew back.
You covered it for me.
Oh,
Francisco.
There's a sports one. The Atlanta Braves. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Atlanta Braves, they have decided to pay their employees regardless if the season has started or not. And so they have decided, we're gonna pay them. So
good guy, Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, good guy, Atlanta. Yeah, good on the Atlanta Braves, and a bunch of other major league teams will follow soon enough. And that's it. So I guess we'll close it out. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to Freddie, Andrew, for bringing Freddie along. That was very nice, very interesting as well to hear his insights on NFL and XFL. Tune in. I think on Thursday I will be streaming the Marlins versus the Phillies All-Star Baseball 2004. So you can join me if you want, and we can talk about old baseball players. That's always fun to see. I think tomorrow might do a stream watching wrestling. So I hope Charles Senpai can guide me for that.
Yeah.
And that's it. We'll be done. We're running out of ideas, but we're still going. We're still going. We're number 60. We might have to end the season at some point and just have like a little pause for ourselves for episodes, but we're still doing the other stuff. I'm trying to think of new things to do. I might do an NHL one or NBA one, like, hey, if the playoffs had started, these teams would have met up, and we'll do a simulation of that too. I don't know. But thanks, guys, for joining me in all this. I'm out. We're done.
I guess that'll do it for us.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Rest in peace, Hank Steinbrenner, who basically said Red Sox Nation is non-existent, just creation, Red Sox and ESPN. Take care, everybody.
Yeah. Rest in peace to Carl Anthony Towns' mom.